After returning victorious from battle, General Wei, who had been betrothed to me since childhood, rescued the princess who had accidentally fallen into the water. The royal family gave me two choices: marry the young general as a noble concubine, or accept the royal rewards, break off the engagement with the young general, and marry someone else. In my previous life, Wei Jingchuan, drenched and shivering, held me in his arms and poured out his heart, coaxing me into willingly becoming his concubine. But the princess was no easy mark. Once Wei Jingchuan's affection for me cooled, tormenting me would be effortless. Before I turned 30, I died in the desolate courtyard of the general's mansion, succumbing to hunger and cold. After being reborn, I found myself back at the palace banquet where the princess had fallen into the water. Faced with the choice again, I didn't hesitate to break off the engagement. Whoever wants to be this concubine can have it. I won't be doing it again. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. Where is General Wei now? Don't let him come too late. This princess doesn't want to drink cold water. Hiding in the shadows, I closed my eyes after hearing those words. The speculations from those desolate days had finally revealed the truth before me. Wei Jingchuan was indeed considerate. When the commotion of the princess falling into the water drew a crowd of noble ladies and matrons, he descended like a divine savior and promptly fished her out. In my previous life, I hadn't left the banquet and was still at the gathering when I overheard others gossiping about this heroic rescue of a beauty. Before I could react, Wei Jingchuan had someone lead me away from the feast. Drenched from head to toe, he held me in his arms and swore that no matter what, his greatest love was for me. Finally, he couldn't resist asking me, "I know you've been well read since childhood, and our love runs deep. Surely you wouldn't care about such trivial titles as wife or concubine like those vulgar women do. Nyanan, would you ever betray me?" At that moment, his sweet words stirred my heart, and all I could think of was my beloved's tender face. Later, when the empress asked whether I wished to marry Wei Jingchuan as a noble concubine or accept the royal reward to annul the engagement and choose another worthy husband, at that time, I firmly believed that love was more precious than gold and replied without hesitation, "Priceless treasures are easy to find, but a devoted lover is rare. I only wish to grow old with General Wei." In my foolishness, I failed to notice the empress's displeased expression. Nor did I see the contemptuous glances the others cast my way during the banquet. Later, Wei Jingchuan exploited my status as a descendant of the Shen family to smoothly take control of my father's former troops. With military power in hand, he became the most sought-after general in the court. By then, I had lost my usefulness, and what little affection Wei Jingchuan had for me had long since faded with time. Princess Jushan, who had long disliked me, could easily make my life miserable. Sometimes it was food that ran short, other times it was warm bedding that was lacking. Who could have imagined that I would ultimately perish from hunger and cold in this vast, splendid general's mansion, surrounded by such opulence? During those years of destitution, I repeatedly revisited my life, reflecting on how I had come to this point. I was born into the prestigious military family of the Shen clan, where the lineage had grown quite thin due to the ravages of war. By my generation, a battle over a decade ago had claimed the lives of my father and brothers, leaving only women in the household. My mother, burdened by grief after their deaths, passed away not long after. Only my elderly grandmother remained, who before her death arranged my betrothal to the son of my father's close friend. The Wei family, as the sole remaining daughter of the Shen family, the imperial household showed me considerable kindness, and I lived quite happily in the capital. But Princess Jushan's interference in my marriage was too disgraceful. No matter how displeased the imperial family was, they had to make amends for her actions. The imperial family was willing to give me a way out and offer compensation. Had I any sense, I should have accepted it to preserve the royal family's reputation, but I was too foolish in my past life, daring to stake my future on a man's conscience, willingly degrading myself as a concubine. Since heaven has given me another chance, I can never again tread the same path as my previous life. So when I saw Wei Jingchuan hand the princess to the nurse and turn to summon a palace maid to give instructions, I quietly blended into the crowd of noble women watching the spectacle. That Shen family's orphan girl is truly ill-fated, lost her entire family, and now even her promising fiancé is about to slip away. Between you and me, I suspect there's more to the princess's drowning incident. Silence. This is the imperial palace, mind your reckless words. Overhearing these whispers, the truth suddenly dawned on me. In my past life, everyone had seen through the trick behind this drowning incident, only I was foolishly oblivious. Just then, a noblewoman beside me nudged me. "What do you think? Do you also believe she did it on purpose?" "Shenyanan." The last three words came out louder than intended, as the speaker suddenly recognized me and couldn't hide her surprise. The whispering crowd was startled, their attention immediately drawn over. Our eyes met, and both sides felt somewhat awkward. Fortunately, the other two involved parties had already left. When I returned to the banquet with the others in this strange atmosphere, the emperor and empress didn't look particularly pleased. Princess Jushan had changed into fresh clothes, kneeling at the center alongside the thoroughly drenched Wei Jingchuan, perhaps having failed to locate me earlier. They noticed my arrival. Wei Jingchuan quickly turned his gaze toward me, as if attempting to convey affection through his eyes, but now, the mere sight of him reminded me of how he had schemed against me and conspired with the princess to take my life. It made me nauseous. Seeing my arrival, the empress's expression softened slightly. She beckoned me over and comforted me with a few words, then, just like in my previous life, gave me a choice. I quickly knelt down with an expression of fearful reverence, but the words that came from my mouth were completely different from those in my past life. Princess Jushan and General Wei are destined by heaven. This humble subject does not wish to ruin their marriage. I beg your majesties to allow me to withdraw from the engagement and let this pair of lovers be together. Hearing my reply, the expressions of the emperor and empress above visibly brightened. He immediately announced the dissolution of my engagement to Wei Jingchuan, bestowed upon me the title of county princess, along with a generous reward of gold, silver, and jewels. At the same time, he arranged the marriage between Jushan and Wei Jingchuan, ordering them to wed within 3 months. The wedding date seemed rather rushed for their status, but the northern frontier was currently unstable. Wei Jingchuan could not stay in the capital for long, hence the urgency in arranging the marriage. At the same time, it was likely also meant as a warning to both of them. Only when I returned to the residence did I finally let out the breath I had been holding. Staring at the dazzling array of rewards and the imperial edict conferring titles, I fell into deep reflection. So in my past life, for the sake of a man and some fleeting reputation, I had actually given up all this. No wonder many people later called me brainless. Thinking of this, I quickly had someone summon Steward Liu. He was my father's old subordinate who retired early due to injuries and became the household steward. Since he was one of us, I didn't hide anything and recounted every detail of what happened at the palace banquet. Uncle Liu gnashed his teeth in fury after hearing this. That despicable Wei family must have seen General Shen's passing as their chance to climb the social ladder, resorting to such underhanded tactics. If the eldest young master were still alive and serving the court, they would never have been entrusted with such responsibilities. Indeed, had the imperial court not been short of capable officials, the emperor and empress would never have let Wei Jingchuan off so easily. But I had no intention of ever associating with that man again in this lifetime. So I said to Uncle Liu, "Uncle Liu, when I left the banquet, I noticed Wei Jingchuan giving me a strange look. Perhaps you could arrange for extra night patrols, just in case." "Are you suggesting he might try his old tricks again to tarnish the young lady's reputation?" I feigned helplessness and shook my head. "I hope I'm just overthinking it." Uncle Liu struck his palm with a fist and said angrily, "I heard from an old friend that the Wei family is using your betrothal to win over the remnants of the Shen faction in the borderlands. That young Master Wei has likely tasted the benefits and won't easily let you go. I'll go arrange some men right away." With that, he hurried off in a flurry of energy. Seeing his spirited demeanor, I was suddenly reminded of my past life, when I stubbornly insisted on becoming Wei Jingchuan's concubine. The way he aged 10 years in an instant made my heart ache with even deeper guilt. In this lifetime, I must never let down those who truly care for me. After a peaceful night's sleep, I was having breakfast in the flower hall when Uncle Liu entered with a smile, just as the young lady predicted. "Last night at midnight some thieves broke into the estate, and we drove them away in utter defeat." Hearing this, I was momentarily stunned before quickly expressing concern to Uncle Liu. "I heard that man is highly skilled in martial arts. Were any of our uncles injured?" Uncle Liu waved his hand proudly. "Don't worry, us old folks haven't let our skills rust. That young fellow will be limping on one leg for quite some time now." Wei Jingchuan cared most about his reputation. Determined to become that dashing young general in fine clothes and spirited steed. If that's really the case, I'm afraid I'll have to lay low for a while. That won't do. If I can't witness his sorry state, I'd feel quite regretful. Turning my thoughts, I said to Uncle Liu, "I heard Wei Jingchuan has been courting the Zhao family since returning to the capital. Uncle Liu, help me send an invitation to the second Miss Zhao, saying I'd like to host her for lunch at Tianxiang Tower for a chat." Uncle Liu nodded in agreement and said to me, "The young lady should indeed socialize more with your father's old friends." At noon, Tianxiang restaurant, Zhao Hongyu frowned the moment she saw me. "Aren't you always reciting those sickly sweet poems with those noble ladies all day? What brings you to suddenly seek out a rough woman like me who plays with spears and sticks?" Her words choked me. In my past life, because Wei Jingchuan admired cultured women. I had worked hard to befriend those young ladies from scholarly families, and even joined them in looking down on Zhao Hongyu for being vulgar. But now that I think about it, how truly ridiculous that was. Later, all us women who prided ourselves on being refined and aloof withered away in the rear courtyard, each in our own manner, but the Zhao family pledged allegiance to Princess Yong'an, and Zhao Hongyu went off to fight enemies at the frontier. She became the dynasty's first female general, truly an awe-inspiring sight. At this thought, I couldn't help but press my lips together and smile at her. Don't worry, I just thought you might be bored in the mansion, so I invited you to watch a good show. Zhao Hongyu trembled at the sight and said to me, maybe you should just scold me instead. The way you're looking at me is giving me goosebumps. Just then, there was a knock on the private room's door, and Wei Jingchuan's voice sounded. I know you're here, Nyanan, please see me. His voice was deliberately gentle, the same tone that had once melted my heart in our past life, but now it only made me nauseous. I noticed Zhao Hongyu rolling her eyes and patted her shoulder with a chuckle, signaling for her and the maids to wait. I turned toward the screen door and opened it myself. As soon as Wei Jingchuan saw me, he couldn't wait to come forward and embrace me. I quickly took a step back to avoid him, and when he saw this, he looked at me with a wounded expression. Nyanan, is it just because I'm going to marry the princess that you're keeping me at such a distance? Hearing this, I clenched my fists tightly, suppressing the urge to punch him in the face, and said coldly, General Wei, please restrain yourself. What did you just call me? He covered his chest in disbelief. Didn't you once vow you'd marry no one but me in this lifetime? Are you going back on your word now? So it turns out I never truly understood him in my past life. The one I loved turned out to be such a greedy man, who sought to control power and fame by surrounding himself with beautiful wives and concubines. Wei Jingchuan, you're about to marry a princess, how else do you expect me to not betray you? Should I degrade myself to become your concubine to satisfy you? Wei Jingchuan immediately turned the tables. Shenyanan, are these empty titles of wife and concubine so important to you? What about the affection between us? Where do you place that? At that moment, a furious roar came from behind the screen, Zhao Hongyu's voice. Damn it all, Shenyanan, I can't take this anymore. As the words fell, the screen was violently kicked down. Zhao Hongyu seized the moment while Wei Jingchuan was off guard, delivering a kick that sent him sprawling to the ground. Then pinned him down underfoot. Shenyanan, aren't you going to do something? She glared at me with hostile eyes. Her stare sent a shiver down my spine, and suddenly inspiration struck. I rushed forward and delivered 2 sharp slaps, smack, smack, across Wei Jingchuan's face, then turned to her with an ingratiating smile. Nyanan, why is Miss Zhao the second here? Wei Jingchuan still had the slap mark on his face, yet he dared to question me first. Utterly ridiculous. Hearing this, Zhao Hongyu let out a cold laugh. She kicked him out the door and shouted at the top of her voice, beating up a lecture. The entire floor of Qianxiang Tower consisted of private dining rooms, frequented mostly by the capital's nobility. Hearing such a commotion outside, most had sent their servants to investigate what was happening. Some of the more mischievous even poked their own heads out to look. Wei Jingchuan wasn't a stupid man, it was just that he'd always looked down on women. Now being struck by women repeatedly, I'm just a bit dazed and can't collect myself. At this moment, reminded by the servant beside me, I finally noticed my embarrassing situation and hurriedly covered the slap mark on my face. As he left, he didn't forget to cast a reproachful look at me, saying, Nyanan, are you truly going to be that heartless and faithless scoundrel? He finished speaking and hurriedly limped away, leaving Zhao Hongyu staring at me with a mocking look in her eyes. Though she said nothing, for some reason, it felt like she had cursed me with something filthy. Shenyanan, it seems enjoying your banquet won't be easy. Her words dripped with sarcasm, clearly referring to how I had used her to deal with Wei Jingchuan. I never intended to hide it from her, but who could have expected that person to arrive so quickly? I truly was at fault for not having the chance to explain it to her beforehand. I hurriedly apologized and presented the prepared gift of gratitude. I've long heard your marksmanship rivals even the men of our household, so I'm giving you this spear from my father's treasured collection. She didn't dwell on it, but instead lifted it with one hand, gave it a couple of shakes, and said to me, You're forgiven. With that, she simply walked away with her entourage. I watched her retreating figure and couldn't help but marvel, truly the most carefree woman in the capital. As for Wei Jingchuan, this would-be royal son-in-law, he still harbors lingering feelings for me, his former fiancé. He even went so far as to publicly harass me in a tavern, an act so scandalous that rumors spread throughout the capital in just one afternoon. Of course, as the rumors spread, they became increasingly outrageous. By evening, there were already over a dozen different versions of the story. The most exaggerated rumor claimed that Wei Jingchuan, Dissatisfied with the imperial arranged marriage, intended to bring me, his former fiancé, into his household as well, just to spite the royal family, I also arranged for people to join in and fan the flames. Most importantly, when rumors unfavorable to me surfaced, they needed to be swiftly redirected. As the highest authority in the capital, it was only natural that he would hear these words, of course, with power and interests at stake. I didn't expect Wei Jingchuan to give up on me easily. I just wanted to delay him for a while. I knew this would naturally make me disliked by those in power, but it was only the first step in obstructing Wei Jingchuan. The next day, Wei Jingchuan was impeached by the censors. Though it was said the emperor did not reprimand him, he was merely told not to attend court for the time being and to focus on preparing for the wedding at home. Every word and action of those in power carries meaning. Though the court still had need of Wei Jingchuan, they could not tolerate his audacious behavior. Just when I thought he would at least lie low for a while, a maid brought me a letter that very evening. Seeing the words "For Nyanan's eyes only" on the envelope, I flew into a rage and ordered the maid and everyone who had handled the letter to be detained. When the room was empty, I opened it to find just 2 words written inside: "Wait for me." Oh, Tilda, still holding a torch for someone, huh? The familiar female voice had barely faded when I turned to look. It was Zhao Hongyu dressed in men's clothing, sitting boldly on my roof beam teasing me. I couldn't help rolling my eyes, casually crumpling the letter in my hand and tossing it aside. "What's wrong with you? There's a perfectly good gate. Yet you choose to be a midnight intruder." She nimbly jumped down, took a few steps forward, grabbed a lock of my hair, and bent down to sniff it. Such fragrant and jade-like affairs naturally cannot be conducted through the front gate. That slick demeanor made him look every bit the spoiled young master. Feeling gloomy, I couldn't help but laugh when I saw her like this. "Happy now? The play you invited me to see yesterday was quite to my liking. How about I treat you to one today?" I'd heard in my past life that Zhao Hongyu was someone who never took a loss lying down. Was she dissatisfied with my thank you gift from that day and now demanding repayment? That was only fair. At this thought, I stopped smiling and nodded in agreement. Seeing my expression, she scratched her head in confusion but still had me change into more practical clothes for travel, then helped me climb over the wall to leave the estate. I just never expected her to take me to Princess Jushan's residence, in our past life, to demonstrate her devotion to Wei Jingchuan. She had never lived there, always staying instead at the Wei family's general's mansion. To be precise, it was the princess's residence prepared by the empress, waiting for her to move in after marriage. Zhao Hongyu led me inside as casually as strolling through her own garden, navigating the familiar twists and turns before pulling me down to crouch beneath a window. "General Wei, you've suffered unjustly. Since that little wretch refuses to drink the toast, I'll make her drink the penalty wine. Though Nyanan is immature, I still regard her as a younger sister. I hope your highness will show some mercy for my sake when dealing with her. Don't worry, not a single hair on your precious sister will be harmed. All you need to do, General Wei, is lie back and enjoy. How will you thank me?" Wei Jingchuan expressed his gratitude quite physically, and soon the room was filled with unspeakable noises. Such filthy business made me extremely uncomfortable. I wanted to leave. But I noticed Zhao Hongyu beside me listening with great relish. I couldn't help but give her a nudge. She sneakily leaned close to my ear and whispered in a hushed tone, "Seems your ex-fiancé is quite skilled in bed. Listen to how loudly Jushan is moaning." Wei Jingchuan, good in bed. I recalled how in my past life, he had initially been somewhat tender and considerate, but later behaved like a spoiled lord. Lying in bed waiting for me to serve him. TSK, what am I thinking about? It's all Zhao Hongyu's fault, that shameless woman. When it comes to framing a woman's virtue, there are only a few common tactics: pushing her into water, drugging her, or swapping her private belongings. A few days later, the mansion received an invitation card delivered by Princess Jushan. She said she had recently acquired several pots of exquisite orchids and was hosting a banquet at the future princess's residence to invite everyone to admire them together. On the day of the banquet, I arrived neither early nor late. Who would have thought the carriage would get stuck 2 streets away from the princess's residence? I lifted the carriage curtain and saw a grand procession of carriages and horses stretching ahead and behind, moving forward slowly. Jushan must have invited all the noble and official families in the capital. These visitors came with ill intentions. At the banquet, I pretended to eat a few bites but secretly spat everything out. A young maid tried to spill wine on me, but I dodged it. And when noble ladies invited me to stroll in the garden, I declined. The banquet was halfway through when Jushan's gaze toward me grew increasingly hostile, though I pretended not to notice, as time grew short. She actually stood up and addressed me directly. "Miss Shen, there are some words I'd like to share with you. Might we step aside for a conversation?" I sighed inwardly. Those in higher positions always had more privilege to act on whims. Princess Jushan was the emperor and empress's own daughter, raised with 1,000 doting affections. If I truly let her succeed in her scheme today, the emperor and empress would only chide her for being willful, but I had no choice. I even had to feign a flattered, docile demeanor and leave with her. As I turned, my gaze inadvertently met Zhao Hongyu's, who was seated beside Princess Yongan. I quickly winked at her. Princess Jushan had always looked down on me, so much so that she wouldn't even bother to put on an act. She simply led me into a side room and pushed me inside. She smiled at Wei Jingchuan's personal attendant. "You see, your young master is unwell and resting here for a while. Miss Shen, unable to forget her old feelings, has come to visit him." The attendant nodded eagerly and quickly closed the door. Hearing the sounds outside the door fade into the distance, I slowly paced to the bed. I saw Wei Jingchuan lying weakly on the couch, his eyes red, looking at me. So, he drugged himself, intending to frame me. Just as I was about to take 2 more steps to get a closer look, a faint fragrance assailed my nostrils, and I immediately felt dizzy. "Break this door down for me." Jushan stormed over with a group of noble women in tow, still shouting angrily. "So this is how you repay me, Shenyanan? You told me you were unwell, yet I never imagined you'd be resting in." "Resting where, exactly?" Jushan's words were cut short by Princess Yongan, who had walked over. As the group approached, Jushan stared in disbelief at Zhao Hongyu and me, who were behind Princess Yongan, listening to the ambiguous sounds from inside the room. She immediately felt a sense of foreboding. Just as she was about to tell them to stop, it was too late. The door had already been kicked down. Young master, please let me go, please let me go." The man's shrill, pained pleas for mercy continued, and the expressions on the faces of those outside the door varied. It was a relative among the noble women who stepped forward, saying that the 2 unmarried princesses shouldn't have their eyes sullied, and then prepared to enter with a few wet nurses. At this moment, Jushan seemed to have just reacted, pushing her away and rushing into the room with his people. In less than 2 breaths, her scream echoed through the room. Then, pale-faced, she was helped out, squatting nearby and dry heaving continuously. Seeing the situation, the clan elder still sighed and led people into the room. Not long after, Wei Jingchuan, hastily dressed, emerged from the room. Meanwhile, his personal servant was dragged out, his clothes disheveled. Seeing this, Jushan, leaning on her maid, pointed at him and sternly ordered, "Kill him, drag him away and beat him to death." "Young master, spare me, young master, please spare me for the sake of my many years of service to you." Wei Jingchuan walked towards Jushan, as if he wanted to say something. Jushan immediately straightened up and pointed at his nose, yelling, "Wei Jingchuan, if you dare to plead for him, then you don't need to be this imperial son-in-law." With that, she left in a huff. The banquet also ended in a hurry, a true anticlimax. Once we were out with Princess Yongan and had boarded her carriage, Zhao Hongyu instantly went limp, as if boneless, and leaned against me. "Not bad, Shenyanan. You actually managed to turn the tables on them this time all by yourself. Quick, tell me how you did it." I cautiously glanced at Princess Yongan, and seeing her with downcast eyes, sipping her tea without any sign of displeasure, I then began to recount what had happened. "It's simple, really. Those 2 must have planned to drug both me and Wei Jingchuan, but with a stronger focus on Wei Jingchuan, to fabricate the illusion that I shamelessly drugged the prospective consort and engaged in illicit relations within the princess's residence. But I knew Wei Jingchuan's servant all too well. He was utterly greedy and lustful. In my past life, after I fell into destitution, he forcibly took all the valuables from my quarters and assaulted my maidservant. If Jushan left him on guard, he would surely peep. So when I smelled the strange fragrance, I immediately held my breath, pretended to faint by dropping the medicine on the ground. Wei Jingchuan lay on the bed, unable to move. The servant, afraid of failing the princess's orders, couldn't resist and came in to check. As soon as he entered, he was hit by the muscle-relaxing powder I had prepared earlier and collapsed on the ground. Playing the Good Samaritan, I found the medicine they had hidden in the bed curtains, stuffed it into both their mouths, placed them on the bed, and then left the room. Jushan had also arranged for maidservants to stand guard outside the courtyard. However, when I went out today, I specifically brought a maidservant who was skilled in martial arts, and she easily found me and dealt with that person. When Zhao Hongyu came to find me, she happened upon me in a good mood, squatting by the pond in the princess's mansion, watching the fish. Without a word, she led me to Princess Yongan. After listening to my account, Princess Yongan suddenly spoke. "Well done, it's just," leaving aside Wei Jingchuan for a moment. "Jushan is not one to be trifled with. Have you thought about how you'll handle her? In the previous life, the one who emerged victorious in this imperial palace was not the young emperor who inherited the throne. Nor was it the empress who rallied Wei Jingchuan and a host of other powerful officials and military commanders to place the young emperor on the throne, nor was it Wei Jingchuan, who would stop at nothing to seize power. Instead, it was Princess Yongan, who, without a sound, was appointed regent grand princess by imperial decree just before the emperor's death. In her previous life, she quickly took control of the court after the emperor's death. Every time Wei Jingchuan mentioned her, he would grit his teeth in hatred, so I dared not delay in answering her question. Rising to my knees in the cramped carriage, I replied to her, "I dare not conceal anything from your highness. After returning home, I plan to feign illness and remain secluded. I will also arrange for my parents to adopt an heir and have him join the military camp, to carry on the legacy of my father and brother." Having said this, I raised my eyes and declared firmly to Princess Yongan, "If your highness has need, the entire Shen family is willing to serve you with the loyalty of dogs and horses." Princess Yongan tapped her teacup lightly, then suddenly asked me, "What if I want you to be that heir?" My heart skipped a beat. Princess Yongan meant for me to. I hesitated. "It's not that I'm unwilling, but I have no martial arts skills whatsoever. I fear I would die a tragic death before I could even serve the princess." "Don't worry, if the heir is gone, we'll just take another." The words were casual but revealed a chilling indifference, sending a shiver down my spine. At once, I kowtowed and declared, "This humble maiden is willing to serve your highness." At this moment, Zhao Hongyu reached out to pull me up, saying to Princess Yongan, "Enough. If you want her, then take her. Why frighten her like this?" Princess Yongan shot her a sidelong glance but remained silent. I am a woman of my word. The very next day, news spread throughout the capital that the Shen family's daughter had suffered a relapse of her old illness and did not have long to live, and with many elders from the Zhao family as witnesses, a successor son was adopted on behalf of my parents. It was rumored that this son was quite extraordinary, with the potential to inherit the Shen family's legacy. These things became the talk of the town. On the contrary, the prospective consort was caught toying with men at the banquet hosted by the princess. Those who attended the banquet that day kept their mouths tightly shut, and no one mentioned it. According to Zhao Hongyu, Jushan was confined to her quarters for reflection upon returning to the palace. The palace, however, made no mention whatsoever of Wei Jingchuan. This was not a good sign for him. I heard that not only our old Shen family associates, but even military officers who had some previous contact with him severed ties after this incident. Perhaps the accumulation of misfortunes made him lose his composure, to the point where he actually led men to storm our Shen residence at night. It's said that after Wei Jingchuan broke in, he led a group of men straight to my private chambers. Pushing open the door, I found no one inside, only to be caught like a turtle in a jar by Uncle Liu and his men. In the end, I left with significant losses. At that time, I had already followed Zhao Hongyu as promised to a military camp full of female soldiers, training alongside them. The training was arduous, especially for someone like me who had never experienced hardship. When I first joined the camp, many people mocked me, calling me a pampered young lady. I couldn't even lift the training longsword more than a few times, but after surviving that terrible life, I deeply cherished every opportunity to improve myself. Finally, after countless tears and sweat, and I don't know how many scars I accumulated, I too caught up with everyone else. Just then, Zhao Hongyu called me back to the capital. Wei Jingchuan and Jushan's wedding date had arrived. Jushan specifically requested my presence to celebrate with them, and the empress granted it. Knowing full well that their intentions were not good, I could only play it by ear. On that day, I had someone apply a sickly makeup look for me. On top of that, these past 3 months have been tough, and though my body is much stronger, I've grown thin. Dressed in the wide-sleeved gowns popular among the capital's noblewomen, I looked even more slender. In Zhao Hongyu's words, I looked as if I didn't have long to live. These past few months, we've been inseparable. When I couldn't keep up with the others, she would give me extra training, so I was very familiar with her. She had picked me up from the Shen residence today, and as soon as I got out of the carriage, I leaned on her, determined to stay by her side all day. The noble ladies and madams around me looked at me with rather complex expressions, some with sympathy, others with disdain. No one came up to talk to me, which suited me just fine. After the wedding ceremony, once the bride and groom had been escorted to the bridal chamber, a maid suddenly came to find me, saying that the elders of the Wei family wished to see me. This was a familiar face. The head maid by Madame Wei's side, whom I remembered from my previous life as someone who liked to look down on me. "I'm not going," I said coldly, knowing full well they had ill intentions. I'd be crazy to go alone. The maid, quick-witted, immediately knelt before me, her eyes reddened. "Miss Shen, our master treats you like his own daughter. Are you truly unwilling to even see him? Is it a family tradition of the Wei household to coerce others into submission with such righteous words?" How is it that everyone seems to do it? I was about to refuse again when Zhao Hongyu subtly squeezed my hand and said to her, "Get up now," forcing Nyanan to move around when you know she's unwell. What excellent hospitality the Wei family shows. Having long since established this tacit understanding with her, I immediately coughed weakly a few times, my voice barely audible as I said, "Since it's Aunt's wish, we naturally shouldn't keep our elders waiting. Thank you for your trouble, Sister Zhao." With that, Zhao Hongyu helped me up and urged the maid to lead the way. She looked at us hesitantly, but ultimately, under everyone's gaze, didn't voice the words that would have sent me away alone. Mrs. Wei and the Wei family matriarch exchanged a few pleasantries with me before signaling to Zhao Hongyu that they wished to share some private words with me. Zhao Hongyu, ever accommodating, left me in the room to face the two women alone. "Nyanan, your grandmother and I have always treated you as one of our own. Who could have foreseen fate playing such tricks on us like this?" Grandmother Wei was also wiping her tears nearby. "Seeing you like this truly pains my heart. Jingchuan will soon return to the northern frontier, and the princess will surely remain in the capital. Nyanan, if you have any feelings left, why not follow Jingchuan? There's no one to restrain you there. You could be a happy couple in that northern frontier. This family is becoming increasingly preposterous. Before, they wanted to make me a concubine, and now they're outright urging me to elope. Do they think that because the Shen family has no elders, I'm ignorant of the world and easy to deceive?" At that moment, Wei Jingchuan, dressed in bright red wedding robes, suddenly rushed out from behind the screen in the hall and took my hand. "Nyanan, if you're willing, we can perform the wedding ceremony right now. No matter what others say, in my heart, you will always be my one and only wife." No, even if Zhao Hongyu wanted to watch the show, I couldn't take it anymore and punched him right in the eye. No one expected such a move from my sickly frame. The blow landed square, instantly gifting him with a black and blue eye. I'm no longer that delicate young lady from before, though I may not match Wei Jingchuan's martial skills. My strength is undeniable. Zhao Hongyu, who had been secretly observing, received my signal. She immediately rushed in and engaged Wei Jingchuan, who was about to strike me. I had long been eyeing the two old hags from the Wei family. Seeing them about to cry for help, I immediately grabbed pastries from the table and stuffed them into their mouths. Without pausing, I delivered several sharp slaps, smack, smack, across their faces. After slapping them, I felt something was missing. Rushing behind the screen where Wei Jingchuan had emerged, I saw Jishan, dressed in bright red wedding robes, opening her mouth to scream. I stuffed pastries into her mouth as usual and slapped her several times. After doing all this, I watched as the three of them choked on the pastries, their eyes rolling back. Noticing Wei Jingchuan being beaten down by Zhao Hongyu, I quickly called for Zhao Hongyu to leave with me. Without hesitation, she grabbed me, carried me out the door, and swiftly ran back to the banquet area using her martial arts skills. When we reappeared before the crowd, I was in tears. I looked utterly wronged, crying as if I might faint at any moment. Meanwhile, Zhao Hongyu's face was filled with indignation as she finally shouted in anger, "This is beyond insulting. Our Zhao family refuses to associate with such people." With that, she pulled me away from the Wei residence, leaving everyone exchanging bewildered glances. They all began speculating about what outrageous thing the Wei family had done to me. After leaving the Wei residence, Zhao Hongyu and I went straight to Princess Yong'an and explained the situation in a few words. Without hesitation, she immediately took us into the palace. After the Emperor and Empress dismissed everyone, I began to weep and complain. The Wei family has gone too far. After marrying the princess, they still insist I follow him to the northern frontier, letting him enjoy the blessings of two wives. If Wei Jingchuan could control the remnants of the Shen family's forces, it would give a military commander far too much power. The emperor certainly wouldn't stand idly by, but for the queen who had pulled him onto her own ship, she naturally welcomed this outcome with delight. In fact, it was she who had previously handled the aftermath for Jiashan. Both the emperor and empress were well aware of what the Wei family was scheming. Such matters could be dealt with discreetly in private, but now that I had brought this affair into the open, it became rather unsightly, especially with the Zhao family's daughter and Princess Yong'an involved. It was clear this matter wouldn't end peacefully. The emperor then sent someone to summon the Wei family members. At that moment, coincidentally, a eunuch announced that the Wei family had requested an audience, which the emperor granted with a nod. There stood Grandmother Wei, Madame Wei, and Princess Jiashan, all three women bearing the marks of slaps on their faces. The disheveled official rushed in shouting for the emperor to uphold justice. Wei Jingchuan's face was bruised, his wedding robes torn and tattered. It was clear they'd inflicted more wounds upon themselves after we left. Seeing me kneeling in the courtyard, their fury erupted instantly. I was immediately accused of opposing the princess's marriage to Wei Jingchuan and assaulting the entire Wei family. Seeing this, I secretly struck myself in the chest. Instantly, I spat out a mouthful of blood and weakly gasped to the group, "How could a terminally ill and frail woman like me possibly injure your Wei family members to this extent? This is simply too much bullying." With that, he collapsed to the ground, his breathing growing faint, more exhales than inhales. Seeing he was on the verge of death, Princess Yong'an urgently summoned the imperial physician. They then turned their accusations toward Zhao Hongyu, who blinked back tears and protested in grievance. I merely showed some concern for my younger sister, who knew I'd be slandered like this. How could a sheltered young lady like me possibly have the strength to beat General Wei into such a state? Joshan was so furious her eyes seemed about to spit fire. She didn't even notice the Empress signaling her, pointing at us and shouting loudly. The imperial physician arrived quickly. After feeding me a pill and applying several acupuncture needles, he bowed to the Emperor and Empress. Miss Shen was already gravely ill with little time left. Now, with this rage-induced heart attack, I fear her remaining days are numbered. At these words, the Emperor immediately snorted coldly. We never knew that General Wei's martial skills had deteriorated so much in the capital. The world holds many prejudices against women, and the Emperor was no exception. Of course, he didn't believe that the entire Wei family had truly been defeated by just me and Zhao Hongyu. Just because the Wei family acted disgracefully, I scolded them harshly. Then I ordered Wei Jingchuan to leave the capital and return to the northern frontier as soon as possible, deducted Jushan's salary, and forbade her from entering the palace without an imperial decree. To appease me, he granted a minor general's position to the heir of the Shen family. He was assigned to serve under General Zhao in the northern frontier. General Zhao is Zhao Hongyu's father. After leaving the palace, Zhao Hongyu nudged me. "You've risen through the ranks quite fast, haven't even been to the battlefield yet, and already made general." I clasped my hands toward her. "I'll need Sister Zhao's guidance in the days to come." Princess Yong'an found us too rowdy and kicked us off the carriage. We immediately returned to camp to focus on training. Since we were heading to the battlefield soon, improving our strength was paramount. Zhao Hongyu also led us in breaking camp and rushing toward the northern frontier, seizing opportunities to practice by apprehending mountain bandits along the way. Many struggled to adapt to killing for the first time, and some even lost their lives. Yet no one complained, for everyone knew this world offered women few paths to walk. We rode at full speed and arrived in the northern frontier even earlier than Wei Jingchuan. General Zhao incorporated us into his camp, and this all-female army achieved repeated victories on the battlefield. Both Zhao Hongyu and I continued rising steadily through the ranks. Because of my status as the adopted heir of the Shen family, I received considerable care from our old retainers in the northern frontier. Gradually, I gained even greater prestige. The army spread word of my bravery in battle and peerless stratagems, saying I carried the very bearing of the old General Shen, far more suited to become the future commander of the northern armies than that oath-breaking Wei Jingchuan, who married a princess. Thus, when Zhao Hongyu and I first entered the military tent to discuss military affairs, Wei Jingchuan accidentally knocked over a teacup. "What are you doing here?" startled by his own lapse. Wei Jingchuan seemed to recall something, then quickly pretended as if nothing had happened. Though the many officers in the tent found it odd, they said nothing. Military matters were urgent. As winter approaches, the northern barbarians, unskilled in farming, often rely on plundering our people to survive. Scouts have reported that an allied force composed of 2 tribes is advancing toward us. Wei Jingchuan advocates for a defensive strategy. But Zhao Hongyu and I believe we should strike them hard enough to make them think twice. We favor an offensive approach. The current commander of the Northern Frontier Army is General Zhao, who has only 3 daughters. Before I arrived at the Northern Frontier, everyone believed that Wei Jingchuan, who was to become the Shen family's son-in-law, would take over the Northern Frontier Army. In the past, the camp largely followed Wei Jingchuan's lead, but after my arrival in the tent this time, my voice unexpectedly overshadowed Wei Jingchuan's. General Zhao decided to let me and Zhao Hongyu lead the vanguard, with Wei Jingchuan as our backup. After everyone left the tent, Wei Jingchuan pulled me aside without a word. "Nyanan, though you didn't say it, I never expected you to quietly follow me here, but this is a military camp, not some childish game. Don't oppose me just to be stubborn." "All right." I fell silent at his words. Had he not heard anything about my military achievements? My deeds? Just because I'm a woman, he could so presumptuously assume I followed him to the northern frontier for some romantic entanglement. Seeing we couldn't see eye to eye, I took advantage of his unpreparedness and kicked him right in the family jewels before making a quick escape. In the following days when he kept pestering me, I simply dragged Zhao Hongyu along and gave him a proper thrashing. He left with an ugly expression, threatening me. Shenyanan, think carefully about my proposal. What you're doing is the crime of deceiving the emperor. I curled my lips, based on my memories from my past life. That emperor would soon be on his deathbed. What did I have to fear from him? In warfare between two armies, not a single moment of opportunity can be missed. I never expected Wei Jingchuan to dare disobey military orders. As our reinforcements, they failed to appear at the designated time. Zhao Hongyu and I have always worked in perfect coordination. She charges at the front while I command from the central army. Upon noticing the anomaly, even though victory seemed within grasp, I immediately signaled everyone to retreat. Our army's delay didn't mean the enemy would be delayed as well. Especially since the Hu people excel in mounted archery, their cavalry in particular can hold off 10 times their number. So when I saw the enemy cavalry numbers didn't match the scouts' reports, I became wary. At this moment, I decisively ordered our retreat into the depths of the grasslands, a route I had studied for a long time as our escape path. Only after confirming that we had completely vanished from the battlefield did Wei Jingchuan belatedly arrive with his troops. Surveying the brutal aftermath of the battle, he turned to his deputy and remarked, General Shen, young and impulsive, craved glory beyond his means. He foolishly provoked the enemy, leading to the annihilation of his entire army. What a pity for those loyal and courageous soldiers. But he didn't know that the Hu cavalry had long been lying in ambush. Seeing our main forces approaching, they launched a surprise attack directly. Wei Jingchuan had thought the main Hu forces had already chased after us. Caught off guard by this unexpected move, he was completely unprepared. He was no fool and reacted swiftly. But the enemy cavalry was too fierce. It was already too late. We could only fight while retreating, suffering heavy casualties before barely making it back inside the city walls. He pinned the entire failure on Zhao Hongyu and me, assuming we'd already perished beneath the enemy's hooves. Meanwhile, Zhao Hongyu and I took advantage of Wei Jingchuan drawing most of the Hu forces' attention to launch a surprise attack on their main camp. They captured a large number of Hu soldiers directly, among whom was even the chieftain's own uncle, the general of this very army. While the city still lingered in the grim atmosphere of defeat, we returned fully laden with spoils and prisoners. General Zhao was so thrilled to see us that he ordered the city gates opened immediately. After sizing up Zhao Hongyu with a few glances, he gave my shoulder several heavy pats. Good, excellent. The Shen family truly has a worthy successor, rubbing my sore shoulder. I locked eyes with Wei Jingchuan's gloomy expression, and anger instantly surged in my heart. General Wei, why did you disobey military orders? If it weren't for him, why would we have suffered so many casualties? This man is utterly unworthy of being a general. The crowd, immersed in the joy of victory, suddenly turned grim-faced. Our army had quite a few survivors who made it back alive, so Wei Jingchuan's argument completely falls apart. But he was a general personally appointed by the emperor. So General Zhao couldn't simply arrest him. He was merely placed under house arrest, awaiting further orders. However, in the evening, the men I had sent to watch him reported that he had secretly led a troop toward the capital. I sought out Zhao Hongyu and said to her, "Get ready, it's time for us to return." Wei Jingchuan received a secret letter from the empress. The emperor was critically ill. She ordered him to lead the army into the capital to ensure her son's smooth ascension to the throne. In his previous life, he relied on me to win over the remnants of the Shen family's forces, successfully gaining control of the northern frontier army. He openly supported the young emperor, ensuring his smooth ascension to the throne. Now, everything he had built in the northern frontier army was completely destroyed. If he wanted to secure future prosperity, what could be more reliable now than the merit of supporting the rightful ruler? Thus, without hesitation, he traveled day and night toward the capital. The emperor has many sons, yet no crown prince has been designated. Now, as he lies critically ill, they all remain within the imperial city, awaiting the final outcome. Though the empress's son holds the status of the legitimate heir, he is merely 8 years old, compared to several other princes who have long established their influence in court. He holds no advantage. So, when the news came from the imperial physician that the emperor would not live to see the dawn, the empress immediately sent word to Wei Jingchuan, who was secretly stationed outside the capital, ordering him to enter the city. The city was in a state of panic, and the leader of the imperial guards had already been bribed by the empress, allowing Wei Jingchuan to enter the imperial palace without any hindrance, watching the trembling princes. His methods were far more ruthless than in his previous life, swift and decisive, with no hesitation. Finally, they entered the emperor's bedchamber with the people and the empress leading the little prince by the hand. "Your Majesty, it's time to issue the abdication edict." He wiped his blade while staring at the old emperor, his expression indescribably satisfied. The old emperor glared at him and scolded, "Treacherous rebel, don't you dare think I would ever." before he could finish. Wei Jingchuan beheaded him with a single stroke. Smiling, he said, "Even without you, this edict will still be issued." With that, he prepared to take the empress and the young prince to draft the imperial decree. At this moment, Princess Yongan appeared before the hall with all the civil and military officials. "Treacherous rebel, how dare you murder the emperor? Your crime warrants execution," Wei Jingchuan retorted. "Nonsense, I was clearly acting out of concern for the nation's peril." Entering the capital by secret decree to enthrone the ninth prince, the upright ministers couldn't bear his arrogant demeanor and began shouting curses at him. He drew his sword and declared to the crowd, "All generals heed my command. Anyone who dares insult this general again shall be executed without mercy. Let me see who dares." Princess Yongan's voice rang out with authority, her imposing presence forcing Wei Jingchuan to take an involuntary step back. This made him feel his dignity was at stake, and he rebuked sharply, "This is the imperial court. What business does a woman like you have here? Leave at once." "Oh, does General Wei truly believe women are useless in this court?" Step by step, I walked from outside into the hall and stood behind Princess Yongan. "Your Majesty, we have arrived too late to protect you." Princess Yongan waved her hand dismissively as the clashing of weapons echoed from outside the hall. Before long, the battle subsided, and Zhao Hongyu strode in, her spear dripping with blood. She took her place beside me, flanking Princess Yongan from both sides. Wei Jingchuan sensed something amiss and immediately grabbed the young prince, pressing a blade to his neck. He threatened the crowd. "This is the emperor's only remaining male heir. Without him, the court would be left without a leader." The empress, in a panic, tried to snatch her son back but was kicked away by Wei Jingchuan. He hit the pillar and passed out. Seeing him distracted, I rushed forward, shouting, "Audacious, release the young prince, and we'll let you leave." Yet my blade struck the back of his sword, and the young prince instantly fell silent. Zhao Hongyu, who had always shared a tacit understanding with me, thrust her spear straight through Wei Jingchuan's body. Both of them collapsed to the ground, lifeless. Zhao Hongyu and I knelt before Princess Yongan to plead for punishment. "Your subordinate is guilty for failing to rescue the young prince from the traitor's grasp. We beg for your highness's judgment." The civil and military officials in front of the hall were so stunned by this scene that they fell silent, leaving only my resounding voice to echo. "A nation cannot be without a ruler for even a day. We implore the princess to ascend the throne at the earliest to stabilize the court, before the old conservatives in the court could voice their opposition." More than half of the officials knelt down and addressed Princess Yongan. "A nation cannot be without a ruler for even a day. We implore the princess to ascend the throne at the earliest to stabilize the court. Long live the emperor, 10,000 years, 10,000 times 10,000 years." As the crowd chanted, more and more people knelt down. Only a few stubborn old-timers remained, scolding the princess for usurping authority like a hen crowing at dawn, but it didn't matter. I turned my head and shared a knowing smile with Zhao Hongyu. Extra chapter. After ascending the throne, the empress first ordered the execution of the queen. She then deposed Jushan, stripping her of noble status and banishing her to guard the imperial mausoleum. They say life there is extremely harsh, and she will spend the rest of her days in such conditions. Because of Wei Jingchuan's involvement, the Wei residence was raided and the entire clan exterminated, leaving no more Weiss in the capital. Later, she asked me what reward I wanted, and all I asked for was Wei Jingchuan's corpse. She cursed me for being out of my mind, said I passed up so many valuable things just to claim an ill-omened relic. I actually find him quite unlucky too, but just to be safe, I need to personally clean him up to put my mind at ease. The empress is quite decent. She gave me the position of Northern Frontier Army's Grand General, with Zhao Hongyu as my deputy. The former General Zhao returned to the capital to enjoy his retirement. She then instructed Zhao Hongyu to keep an eye on me, making sure I don't do anything perverted. If there's shit in my brain, knock it out of me right away. No, what do they think I'm going to do? I carried Wei Jingchuan's corpse and sought out many Taoist priests and Buddhist monks to perform rituals in turn. I had his soul shattered, completely eliminating any possibility of his reincarnation. I certainly don't want him to be reborn in some lifetime unknown to me. After completing all this, I burned his corpse to ashes, thoroughly obliterating every last trace. Having witnessed everything, Zhao Hongyu clicked her tongue in amazement. So all this time it was love turned to hatred. You really hold a grudge, not even death could make you let go. I roll my eyes at her. Then you better treat me well from now on, or be careful, I'll hold a grudge. She waves her hand dismissively. All right. Hurry back to the capital after you're done here. The empress has prepared a gift for you. Returning to the capital in utter confusion from her words, I discover her so-called gift is 4 strikingly handsome men, each with their own unique charm. The empress worries that you've been deceived by a crooked tree because you've seen too few men. So she's bestowed a few upon you to broaden your horizons." Then she suddenly leered at me and said, "As your dearest friend, it's not too much to ask for half, is it?" Hearing this, I kicked her out with one foot. "I've already given you half of the gold and jewels from the reward, don't push your luck. If you want the Empress to grant you some, stop eyeing mine."